Hi, I'm DJ Kessinger, and I play the Dungeon Master and the Assassin in Dayo, Gorge. Thank you for listening to the Iron Archives. The Iron Archives is a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition campaign with heavy homebrew elements that has been recorded and edited for optimal convenience of you, the listener. Dungeons & Dragons is a role-playing game which is played entirely within the theater of the mind. Players create imaginary characters and set off on an adventure created by the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master acts as both lead storyteller and referee. The goal of the game is not to defeat the other players, but to work together to tell the best possible story. Most actions performed by the players and the Dungeon Master will have the outcome determined by dice roll, most commonly a 20-sided die. When the result of the dice roll is calculated with the character's pre-selected abilities, the Dungeon Master determines whether the action was successful or not. The higher roll, the more likely it is to succeed. Whenever a player makes a roll, you will hear this sound. Immediately after, you will hear a sound indicating whether or not the roll was successful. This sound indicates a success. This sound indicates a failure. This sound indicates that the player has rolled a 20 on a 20-sided die, and the action will be as successful as reasonably possible. This sound indicates that the player has rolled a 1 on a 20-sided die, and the action will be as unsuccessful as reasonably possible. The players and Dungeon Master have created unique elements they all bring to the story. The players cannot be sure where the story will take them, and must improvise when new elements are introduced. The Dungeon Master cannot know what actions the players will take, and must improvise to those actions. Neither the player nor the Dungeon Master can know what rolls the dice will bring. Therefore, to everybody involved, the game is completely unpredictable. Nobody knows what will happen. The mid-afternoon sun shines on a unassuming tavern in the middle of the city of Muldoon. Inside what is apparently the Strangers and Friends Tavern is a decent mid-afternoon bustle. People wanting to get late lunches or early suppers. And among the trouble, the chaos, the just general talking is a rather large table that has been set for 7. Currently at this table, there are 4 different persons. There are 2 decently armed elves, a armed halfling, and an armed, slightly better decorated Mindrari. The 4 of them share a common uniform, recognizable by the symbols, the silver bows, an elite force of guerrilla soldiers used by White Sentry and the overall Empire. The elves both have a pale complexion with purple eyes. Their dark, long hair shows that the 2 of them are twins. They have clothing and weapons which would indicate that they are both spellcasters. The halfling, who nervously fiddles with his drink, looks up to the well-decorated Mindrari. "When do you think they'll get here, Captain?" "They'll come when they come. You have to have patience." "I know I need to have patience, but... well, I just wasn't expecting to get in this sort of mission so soon." "Relax, Asher. You'll do fine. You are working with 3 very experienced silver bows," he says, motioning towards the 2 elves.
Alara flashes a very comforting smile at the new member of the Silver Bows. "Relax. You have nothing to worry about. We'll be just fine."
"I suppose. I do wish you could tell me more details, Captain. Put my mind at ease." "All you need to know is that we are going after Doran Ilthon." "Yeah, that's the part I don't like. I'm too new for this sort of thing. You'll be fine.
We've been doing this for quite some time. There's no need to worry.
If you say so. But, I mean, it's Doran Ill-Thought. This is the one who killed the governess just a couple years ago. He was able to get past all those soldiers that were guarding her.
And yet he has no one guarding himself.
Makes for an easy target.
The halfling takes a very deep breath as he takes another drink. Around this time, the front door opens up, and 3 individuals who certainly stand out from the rest of the crowd make their way into the tavern. The most different among them is well-armored. He carries a shield which has the crest of the Empire, the Mendrian Lotus, which emblazons the front. You can see by his size and by the mask that he wears that he is a Tyranid. He is tall even by Tyranid standards, and looking at the mask you see that there are no eye holes, each of you knowing that Tyranids do not have eyes. They perceive their world through different means. And you hear a faint but constant clicking coming from this man as he looks around the room. Immediately to his left is a well-decorated member of the cohort. You can see that while dwarves are no really shorter than anybody else, he is still dwarfed by the massive Tyranid to his right. He is also in very heavy armor with a obvious cohort styling to it. And to his right is a final man, a Mindrari, whose appearance matches in several ways that of your captain's. Feathery hair, a bit of a steel grayness to him. It doesn't seem like he is quite as old nonetheless. He stands at about 5'2" with brown skin and blue eyes. He is much more lightly armored than his companions, yet his styling and the insignias make it clear he is also a member of the Lydiran cohort. You all are aware of the fact that these people are considered the most elite in all of the Imperial Army. At the side of it, your captain, Kidron, stands up and motions over with a smile on his face. Ah! Captain Nitrosin, I assume.
Captain Kidron. Well met.
Well met indeed. Please have a seat.
Torbjorn will walk over to the nearest chair and have a seat beside the captain.
As all of you take a seat at the table and order drinks or food as necessary, and getting some pleasantries out of the way, Captain Kidron calls attention to himself. Captain Nitrosin, I'm very pleased to meet you. I've heard nothing but good things about your abilities, especially in the task we have before us.
Well, thank you. I've heard that the 4 of you are the best of the Silverbows. I look forward to working with you.
He gives a faint smirk. Well, perhaps not the best, but speaking for my soldiers here, they are all very good. And he says this making direct eye contact with the halfling. Allow me to introduce you. Over there is Ilric Nygaard, a man of considerable talents. His twin sister, Alara Nygaard, and this is our newest member, Asher Cardelon.
As he describes our group, Alara just lifts a hand and waves daintily.
Elric responds with a pleasure to meet you all, and kind of will nod his head and give his falcon a little stroke.
Torbjorn will nod. My companions here, we have Obaru Ochanda, a paladin of many skills, and Volmar Arnulf, master huntsman, ranger.
It is very nice to meet you all.
Volmar gives a single nod.
Around this time, you hear the music begin to pick up a little louder. Ah, perfect timing. Well, we should finish up our meal here, and perhaps move to more private quarters to discuss our purpose.
That may be wise.
You finish up light meals and drinks, and move up to the private quarters, which apparently was rented out by Captain Kidron. He closes and locks the door. You each find a seat, a couple of you having maybe to sit on the bed, or perhaps stand up. But nonetheless, you do all have room. He addresses you. Well, there's no use in any more secrecy. We all know why we are here. Silverbow scouts have tracked Dor and Ilthon to the deep mountains of White Sentry. And of course it is our combined tasks, he says, kind of nodding to Captain Torbjorn. It's our combined tasks to find and eliminate him. I do have a plan regarding this. And of course, Captain, your input is highly valued within this plan. He breaks out a map, and you can see when he puts it on a nearby table, it's a crude map, but it is labeled Dayo Gorge. The captain puts a pipe in his mouth and lights it, and the sweet cinnamon-like smell wafts through the room. He takes it out. This is Dayo Gorge, where we believe that Ilthon has fled to and is currently hiding. It is a small community. It's not even right to call it a proper village. But seeing as there is only one way in and one way out, they have strong bonds over there. Scouts indicate that Ilthon entered there about a season ago, and there is no reason to believe he has left.
Do we know where he's taking refuge?
That we do not know, but it is a fairly small area. It's likely that the citizens there have seen him, or if they haven't seen him, there's not that many hiding places he could be in. The name of the area is Dayo Gorge, named after, and he blows a puff of smoke, the Dayo they grow there. It's usually used for smoking. Tends to be good for clearing headaches. It is a red flower that floats on the wind from miles away from the source. Dayo Gorge is likely the number one producer of Dayo in all of White Sentry. And although it's very secluded, it has an abnormal amount of visitors. Apparently Dayo Gorge used to be some old Mari society living there or something along those lines. As a result, scholars find reason to go up there every once in a while. And of course, traders go to trade Dayo for various goods. The plan is rather simple, since there is only one major entrance into Dayo Gorge, and it is very difficult to get in or out outside of this pass between Mount of the Second Sun and Mount Arenbuck. I will take Asher here up to the top of the Mount of the Second Sun and cause an avalanche, once, of course, you are safely inside. That should seal you inside for at least 3 days. During that time, it will be impossible for Ilthon to escape, as he has done so many times before. There you will find him and kill him. At this point, you hear the halfling say, "Wait, so we're not going to fight Ilthon ourselves?" No, you were nervous earlier about doing so. Well, I suppose so, but think of the glory. Glory will have to wait for you and I. Captain, if you agree to this plan, I will lend you my spellcasters here, he says, and nodding over to Alara and Ilric.
The plan is sound.
Very good. If that is the case, Alara, Ilric, I'm handing you over to the command of Captain Torbjorn. You're to follow his commands as if they were my very own. Is that understood?
Understood.
Understood.
Very good. You will find them very useful in many different circumstances. I know I have. If we are settled on the plan, then I will take my remaining man here, and we will go as soon as this meeting is over. Give you a little extra time since we need to be able to climb to the top of the mountain. At noon on the day after tomorrow, we will set off the avalanche. I suggest you do not go in there as soldiers. I suggest disguising yourselves, either as traders or as scholars.
Easy enough, Ilric will say with a quite coy look on his face.
Either way, they won't find it very odd, and it also won't be odd that you are so well armed. If you choose a trader route, it might cost you a little bit of money in order to get some things to actually trade. However, if you choose the scholar route, you might have to do a little bit of research on your way there, so you don't give yourself away by your ignorance.
I think that perhaps we should get a cart with some barrels of ale to bring to the village center. That will give us some cover to carry plenty of our equipment with us without being noticed.
Very good. I've also taken the liberty of purchasing some less conspicuous armor for those of us with obviously imperial type armor. I think you'll find it to your comfort, but the decoration will be slightly different. Does anybody have any questions about the plan?
Alara leans forward on her, puts her elbows on her knees as she sits forward and goes, "Do you have a recent description of what this man looks like?"
Oh, of course. Almost forgot one of the most important parts. Doran Ilthon is an elf, if you couldn't tell by the name. He is decently tall, not particularly strongly built, with black hair. Doesn't look all that different from our own Ilric, although perhaps a little skinnier from what I can tell. He has gray eyes as well. Although I've never seen him personally, those are the best descriptions we have.
There is one thing I would like to say. The Emperor has decided that this man is to die, with no trial. This is grim work, and I want to make sure that everyone here is up to it. There will be no quarter expected from our enemy, and none shall be given. Does anyone here have a problem with that?
Not at all.
Nope.
Alara just smiles.
Very well.
Captain Kidron smiles a bit. It seems that it's settled then. If there are no more questions.
I do have one more question.
Of course.
Seeing as we're going in as traders, if perhaps we were to actually make some money trading, what are we allowed to do with that money?
Well, with Captain Torbjorn's permission, of course. If it were just up to me, I would say consider it a bonus.
Well, alright then.
Very well. If that is all, I apologize for the crudeness of the map. This was drawn by a merchant who was describing it to me, but you all may keep it. I have no need of it, and I think you'll find it more useful.
Captain Kidron, I have one question. I've been tracking and hunting for a long time now. I know that when prey feels cornered, it goes to a place of safety. Do we know a reason why Ilthon came here, to Dayo Gorge?
I'm afraid not. Our witnesses are reliable that he is there, but we have no clue why he has come.
If I may offer up a theory of my own, you said it is a rather small community yourself, so perhaps he fled there thinking that it may be somewhere we're not particularly looking for, say, a famous assassin.
Perhaps. Well, whatever the reason, wherever he is, I have the utmost confidence you will find him. If that is all, I will take Asher here and we will set off immediately. Remember, the avalanche will be happening on noon the day after tomorrow. It will take you leaving just at dawn tomorrow in order to make it in time.
Yes, I believe I do have one question. And once that's done, if nobody else has anything they want to ask, we can be on our way if you'd prefer. You say that we will be trapped for, at the very least, 3 days, correct?
It is an estimate. It's based on how fast the snow melts.
Is there, say, a possible rescue plan in case things become a little dicey?
There's not much of a rescue plan, I am afraid. Asher and I will be camping on top of the mountain for those days, but it will be very difficult for us to get down and to help you. It will be pretty much you by yourself.
That is understandable.
Very good.
Never had a backup anyways.
All right, Asher. Let's get moving. Yes, Captain. Ilric, Alara, best of luck to you.
And to you.
Why, thank you.
And he quickly picks up his things from this room and begins to move out. After Captain Kidron leaves, you all get settled in and get busy getting the work done for your disguises. You split up if necessary or stay together, going to purchase the ale, the cart, and the horses necessary to pass yourself off as traders.
Captain Torbjorn, can I ask you a quick question? So do you have any ideas of what kind of tactics you'd like to employ? Because we are sort of a makeshift team. I was wondering if you had any rough ideas of any pre-built tactics in your mind?
Well, what I've found with battle is that you never know until you get into the thick of it just what a man's made of, or a woman. So I thought when we get there, you would each fall into place. I can see by the way that you're dressed that you have specialties that you'll be able to leverage. And my companions here, we've worked together quite a bit.
Alright, I do have some specialties, mainly in deception and infiltration, scouting a bit. But yeah, Alara and I will tend to stay in the back more so than anything.
That would be wise.
As you make your preparations, the day comes to an end, and each of you go to bed at a pretty early time. You wake up very early the next morning before the sun has even risen. Each of you make your way down to the tavern, waiting for the rest of the party to come. The tavern keeper, a rather portly-looking male human, stops you, Torbjorn. Master Torbjorn, is that right?
That's right.
I have a packet for you. And he takes out a bluish steel dagger, which you recognize instantly to be made out of lay iron, with a small tag on it, which has been tied on via twine. You read to Torbjorn, "Keep my soldiers safe. From Kidron."
Interesting. I'm not sure I've ever had a gift from another captain before. Is this some type of silver bow tradition?
If it wasn't before, it should be now. That's quite fun.
I would love a dagger from him. Sadly, he only gives us money.
Very well. Well, thank you, sir. Torbjorn will take the dagger and slide it into his belt.
You're quite welcome. And you're always welcome at the Strangers and Friends Inn. He goes back to his position. The rest of you make your way into the main room of the inn. And once you are ready, you leave. When you leave, the sky is still mostly dark. Most of the light comes from the nearby torches on the thatched roof inn. There is a grayness, though. Although you cannot see the sun's influence is obvious. There is a coldness in the air, and it is more cold than many of you would be comfortable with. Torbjorn, you take your faithful hound, which you have tied up outside of the inn, and pet him, and move towards the cart which you have purchased, along with the various goods, mostly alcoholic. Looking around the city, it is quiet. Barely a soul moves in this darkness. Taking various positions on the cart, you begin to move out. Each of you having changed into garbs which are not recognizable as that of soldiery, with the exception of Captain Torbjorn, who has put various furs over his clothing and only replaced his shield with something less recognizable. And having left these signature bits of armor in the safekeeping of the inn, which you have paid to keep it safe, you begin to make your way out, being driven by Captain Torbjorn. You make your way out of the main gate, which is guarded by only a couple of white sentry soldiers. The gate is just open for the morning.
Volmar turns to the two silver bows and says, "So, how long you been working with Captain Kidron?"
I turn to my brother and look at him for a moment and say, how long has it been now? 8 years? Somewhere in that range?
It's been quite a while.
The time blends together when you're having fun.
Ah, yes. Elves, of course. So you know him well, then.
I guess.
You could say so.
And did that dagger gift seem unusual to you?
I think he just wants to make a good impression. You know, I mean, working into cohort and silver bows, it's nice to see some new faces.
We don't tend to work with other divisions, so we've never quite seen another captain for him to offer a gift to.
I only ask because usually when the cohort is sent in, the local, guards and such, they tend to be a little resentful of us being there. And usually we get the opposite kind of reaction. Not so helpful, protective of their own, which we understand. I'm just a little surprised. I've never seen gift giving before.
Well, we appreciate good allies.
As do we.
Don't look too much into it, Volmar. It was just a gift.
You know me, Captain. I'm always on watch.
Indeed.
It can be rather good to keep a skeptical nature about you, but don't let it consume your other senses.
We're going to need all of our senses for this. Ilthon is as dangerous as you've heard.
I can only imagine he has given us the slip this many times.
Volmar kind of settles back and goes back into his own thoughts.
The day rolls on. The sun begins to climb into the air. However, the temperature does not rise. In fact, it gets colder as you continue to move up and up into the mountains. For those of you of the cohort, this may not be something you're used to. These are not like the normal tropical climates of most of the Empire. And in Volmar's case, seeing snow is something that is incredibly rare, and you are beginning to see white-capped mountains.
Ilric will kind of just lean into Alara and kind of say, "So, what do you think of these cohorts?"
Quietly, back to him, I just go, they seem to know what they're doing. I mean, we will see, but for now, they seem to be just fine. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, I suppose.
Yes, I just hope that they don't get too upset with what we may do.
Agreed. But they will soon learn the way that the silver bows work.
You unfortunately notice them whispering, and you try to listen in, but you are unable to hear any of it.
I do not mean to intrude, but perhaps if you have something to say, you should share it with the rest of us. I mean, secrecy among troops like this can lead to distrust among the group.
Oburu. These are silver bows. They know their business.
Understood, Captain.
Continuing upward, the horses find themselves sort of short of breath, and you have to take more frequent breaks as you continue to ascend and to ascend. Eventually, all the mountains become snow-capped, and the temperature has gotten to a consistent cool. As the day draws to a close, you all find a decent campsite, make a campfire for yourselves.
Volmar turns to the two silver bows and says, I have to admit I've never seen land this beautiful before. These mountains and the snow. We don't have anything like that down in the Haven. Is it always like this?
Oh, it's gorgeous in the winter. You should see when the snow does that thing where it basically just has a little bit on every little branch in the morning, and it's just it looks like everything has just been layered. Like have you ever been to one of those big bakeries and they have the cakes that have the layered icing on top? It's like that, but with snow.
What's even more fun is when you go up to the trees and you just hit them, it all just floats off. Quite amusing.
It's even more amusing when it falls on top of him.
Yes, that's happened a couple of times.
Alara kind of puts her hand up by her mouth, pretending like she's trying to be quiet, but she's definitely not. She just goes, definitely was probably my fault a few times, but we're not going to talk about that.
Volmar chuckles and then says, I almost wish my daughter was here. She's a painter, and this is the kind of thing she would just love seeing, painting.
Volmar takes a moment to gaze around him, looking at the sun setting on these massive mountains, looking at the green valleys below up to the white caps, and seeing that they're all bathed in the red of the setting sun.
Oh, well, best be careful so you can make it home to make sure that you can describe it to her. I'm sure she would paint a lovely painting of it.
Yes. My wife and daughter are always on my mind, especially on these types of missions.
A child should have her father and mother.
Agreed.
Eric will say that with a bit of a awkward smile on his face.
Torbjorn will be sitting by the fire with the dog at his feet. The dog's head in his lap. He's petting a very old, gray-muzzled warhound. Volmar, may I see your sword?
Which one, Captain? Right or left?
Probably the right.
Volmar draws it very quickly, spins the grip in his hand, and hands it to the captain.
Torbjorn will take the sword and give it a long, considerate look. This is good steel, or at least it used to be. You know, these chips, they won't work themselves out, and you don't see any chips. Do you mind if I sharpen it for you?
Of course, Captain. My pleasure.
Torbjorn will reach down and pull out a series of cloths and 4 sharpening stones of different shades of gray, and a flask of oil, and he'll apply some oil to the first rag, to the first cloth, and begin to wipe down the sword from the pommel, working down the handle, over the hilt, through the blade. And then he'll grab the first stone, the darkest gray, and very slowly grind the edge of the sword, repeating this process with a different cloth and a different stone until he's used all of them, and then present the sword back to Volmar.
This process, of course, takes a length of time. Overall, it would take you probably about an hour to do a very good job on this. The rest of you continue talking as the sun finally finishes setting behind the mountains, and the red is replaced with black as Torbjorn rhythmically continues sharpening this sword. You see that the sky is bathed with stars. filling up almost the entire thing, but making a huge constellation when put all together in the shape of a spade. Looking up and admiring the familiar sky, you continue talking, slightly more light-hearted as you get to know each other a little bit better. Finally, your sword is returned to you, Volmar. The hound makes a huge yawn and moves over near one of the wheels of the cart and walks around in a circle for a moment before lying down and going to sleep.
Throughout this time, Ilric has been sending his falcon up and doing a sweep around, seeing if there's anything around that could look potentially dangerous or suspicious. He does this once every hour out of just pure instinct, from doing it for many, many years.
Very well. The falcon goes up and you watch it, and with your keen eyes you are able to see it even in this dark, and the shadow is flying, covering up stars on occasion, before returning to you onto your arm.
Did you see anything, Bud?
The falcon shudders a little bit, ruffles its feathers before putting them back in the correct spots.
I see. Here you go, and he'll put him back on his shoulder, and the falcon will resume his stone-like figure.
So Volmar's really examining his blade, and honestly can't tell any difference. But he says, "Excellent job, Captain. It definitely looks sharper."
Absolutely.
Alara's watching this whole exchange from the side, looking slightly amused.
The night goes on for a little bit. The fire begins to go down, and each of you start to feel tired.
Well, Captain, your hound dog, I think, has the right idea, but we should decide about watches.
Any volunteers?
Ilric and I can take one of the watches.
Very well.
I can take the second.
Perhaps we should all just take one.
While I'm asleep, my falcon will assist you. It will awaken me if it senses any danger.
Oh, I thought elves didn't need to sleep.
I say sleep because some people tend to not realize that trances are different. Makes it a bit easier for everyone to understand.
I see.
The two of you stay up while everyone else goes to sleep. For a few hours you watch the sky, listen to the various insects which chirp throughout the wilderness. Nothing occurs during your watch, and you wake up the next watch, and you both go into trance. Volmar, you perceive nothing else during your watch, and around the time that you finish up your watch, Captain Torbjorn wakes up. You see him stretching and putting on his armor, and you feel he's probably he's up for the morning.
Volmar approaches the captain and says, "All's quiet, Captain."
Good to hear. We don't expect any trouble until we get into the valley, but it's wise to be cautious, as you well know.
And you know, Captain, I am always very cautious. And he glances over at the silver bows.
Torbjorn will grin, nod his head.
Volmar goes to sleep for what he can for the remaining hours. Nothing occurs during your watch either. Oberu is the first to wake up right when the sun is dawning. This is actually along the same time as Alara and Ilric both wake up as well. The last one to awake, trying to get the last few hours he can squeeze out of this rest, is Volmar. At this point, the sun has risen over the new day. However, clouds from the direction you are moving, which is mainly north, dark clouds cover the sky.
Volmar says, "Are those typical this time of year?"
The weather up here changes quite a bit. The best thing to expect is to never know what to expect.
Right, Captain, right. I forget you're from here, aren't you?
Indeed.
Oh, that's quite interesting.
Well, we're all from somewhere. All right. I guess we had best get a move on. It'd be best to get up there before the avalanche gets triggered, don't you think?
Definitely.
I like the idea.
Torbjorn will walk over and lift up the hound dog and put him up in the front seat on the bench next to him.
You pack all your supplies up and begin moving through the valleys towards your destination. There is a bit of a path. It's really not a proper road that goes through this way. And as you continue, the skies begin to darken. After about an hour... Oh, wait.
Mm-hmm.
You notice something floating through the air in your direction. Instinctively, you go up to catch it and look in your palm to see a blood-red Dayo petal.
Oh, would you look at that? We're getting close. And Ilric will lower his hand and show Oberu and his sister the red Dayo petal.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's neat. Didn't quite believe them at first when they said that the wind took them that far, but I mean, we must be getting at least somewhat close then.
As you continue, you see that the clouds have completely gone over you, and drops of rain begin to fall. It is cold, unpleasant rain. Each of you huddles under whatever clothing they can get on this, and continues through. The rain never goes up to a full storm, but it does become a heavy rain, and soon the path ahead of you becomes muddy and harder to traverse. At one point, you hear a sudden cracking of wood, and the cart tips slightly to the bottom right. One of the wheels have been caught in the mud and have broken trying to get through it.
That's unfortunate.
Truly. Alara's gonna jump down from the cart and then she's gonna go and take a peek at the wheel to see if it's really bad.
Looking at the wheel, it appears a couple of spokes have broken out of place and caused the wheel to kind of collapse on itself. Not 100% beyond repair, but it would take somebody with skill.
Volmar has gotten out of the cart and is watching all around them.
Torbjorn takes a look at the damage as well.
Volmar, you take a look around you. It's hard to see very far through this rain. While it is not ridiculously hard, it is thick enough that it's hard to see more than a few hundred yards in any direction. As Captain Torbjorn moves from the cart towards the rear wheel, which has been broken, and squats down and starts to inspect it.
Well, this is definitely some rough damage, but I think maybe with a little bit of work I can get it back on the road.
Torbjorn takes some spare lumber, which is kept in a lower compartment in the cart, and begins carving new spokes. With the help of some of you managing to hold up and calming the horses and keeping a good watch out, after about an hour and a half, a new wheel has been constructed. During this time, the rain has stopped and the clouds have begun to move on. You are cold and wet, but not dangerously so, and you are drying off. And the temperature is getting slightly warmer as well. However, now that you can see the sun, it appears to be around mid-morning. And you still cannot see the Twin Peaks, which hold the pass to get into Dayo Gorge.
Well, that accident has set us back quite a bit. I think we may need to pick up the pace.
Yes, we really don't want to get caught in that rock slide.
Indeed. Oburu, how about you get on the cart here and we'll see if we can drive this pony a little bit faster. Yeah, so Torbjorn will start to push the animals.
Would it be alright if I stayed outside of the cart for now? In case of wild animal strikes or, say, bandits?
Well, just try to keep up. That's up to you.
You continue in the same way, and you go up the hill that you have been going. Luckily, just as you crest this hill, you see two large mountains with a small pass in between the two of them. It does seem to be a couple of miles away still, but luckily not that far. However, you are constantly racing the sun before it hits the middle of the sky, and Torbjorn pushes the animals at a pretty hard rate. While it's occasionally difficult to keep the horses on track, you do manage to do so, Torbjorn, and Oburu seems to have no trouble jogging alongside the cart as you continue to go through. Eventually, you take the final road up towards the pass. Hundreds of blood-red petals are gently floating out of this crevice between these two great mountains as you approach.
Oh, wow, that's quite a pretty visual. Perhaps you can tell your daughter about this one.
I don't think my words could do it justice. It's beautiful and yet morbid at the same time.
You eventually enter into this pass. It is very narrow, only about 60 feet at its widest. You go into this pass nervous, seeing that the sun is just about at the center of the sky. Eventually, you make it to just about the center of the pass. Ilric. As you are right in the middle of the pass, suddenly, behind a nearby rock, you see a black flicker.
Torbjorn, did you see the black flicker by the rock up ahead?
What? No. And Torbjorn will pull back the rein on the horses a little bit to slow the cart down some.
As soon as you are slowing down, looking very vigilantly around you, you notice that behind this rock comes a great black beast, the kind of which you haven't seen before, at least some of you. And at the same time, because of your vigilance, you notice another one in the nearby bushes. You see two black, large-looking cats with fangs bared. They skulk towards the cart, each of them with 3 tails, 2 of which are long and tentacle-like. They have these yellow eyes and large fangs as they continue closer and closer. Volmar, you seeing this, waste no time in acting.
Volmar's eyes narrow when he sees the creatures, and having his longbow ready, he raises it up in one hand, waves at the one closest to them in the bush, and says in Mendrari, "Pray," and casts Hunter's Mark on it. Then he takes his first shot with the longbow.
You take aim at the beast, release your arrow, and seeing that the arrow is a little bit off to the right, you think it's going to hit in its shoulder. But suddenly, as soon as you hear the vision of the beast changes slightly, and you see you've made a direct hit right at the chest. Growls the beast. Slightly confused by this quick change in position, you take your arrow and launch it a little bit to the left, thinking it might change again. However, it whizzes right past it, exactly as it should this time.
You're seeing the displaced beast right opposite the cart. Will point at it and then grip his hands real tight, casting Hex up on it.
Ilric, you launch an invisible force that goes through the cart, moves some of the barrels a bit, brushes the branches of the bush nearby to the side. However, it just misses this beast.
Alara will take out a small twig from a pouch on her side, and she will point it at the displacer beast and cast her Witch's Bolt.
Taking out a twig, you mutter a small incantation, and suddenly, in a flash of blue light, lightning streaks out from the twig and makes contact with the beast. It zaps it and continues in this constant arc between the twig and the beast. Although it feels like you haven't done that much damage yet, you are able to keep contact with it.
She reaches out her other hand and makes a fist as she looks at it and attempts a chilling touch.
Alara, attempting to focus on 2 spells at once, attempts to cast a skeletal hand to grab onto the creature. However, the hand moves right past the creature and hits the nearby rock wall.
Figures.
Volmar, you watch as the beast bounds over the bush and swings its tentacles at you wildly. While you manage to duck out of the way of one of them, the other strikes you right in the side, and you hear a couple of your own ribs cracking slightly as blood begins to pour down from where it was hit.
Volmar just growls at the thing.
You watch as the displacer beast, continuing to make eye contact with you, suddenly shifts its position again slightly, not by its own physical power, but as if it teleported only a foot or 2 to the right.
Ilric's falcon will fly over to the displaced beast that just accosted Volmar and start picking at its eyes.
The falcon flies off towards the beast and makes an attack at where it thinks the beast is. However, the beak of the falcon goes straight through this illusory part of the beast.
Torbjorn ties back the reins of the horses to keep them as steady as possible and yells to Oburu, "Oburu, protect the horses." And then he will leap down and make a mad dash as far forward to the beast hidden behind the rock.
The beast, seeing that Captain Torbjorn is charging towards it quickly, leaps over the boulder, just being missed by a swing of the hammer towards it, and lands directly in front of the horses. The beast lands right in front of these horses, the gray one being the first to rear up and paw the air just as 2 tentacles rip into its skin around the throat and the side. In a horrible scream, the horse is thrown to the ground, bloodied and dead. Oburu takes a swing at the beast. However, he hits the illusory form and not the beast itself. Around this time, all of you are suddenly shocked to hear a loud whistling sound that appears to be coming from far above you in the mountains, immediately followed by an explosion, and a rumbling fills the whole pass. Looking up, you see snow from the very peak of one of these mountains begin to tumble down towards the pass.
Volmar looks up, sees the snow crashing down towards them, and looks at the snarling creature also directly in front of his face, and decides the immediate danger is the thing right in front of him. He draws his short sword and strikes at it.
Taking your short sword, you attempt to stab the creature in front of you. However, you only hit the illusory part. It seems to be projecting itself in different places, and you're never 100% sure where exactly the creature is.
Ilric, hearing the mountain collapsing down upon him, and seeing that one horse is dead, he will look around him, see the displacer beast, fire an eldritch blast, and hope for the best.
The blast rips through the cart and manages to strike the displacer beast.
Ilric will then jump off the back of the cart and make his way closer to Oburu.
Alara looks up and sees all of the snow coming down and with a slightly panicked look, pushes another burst of energy out through her connection in the lightning that she has sustained.
You feel that it's just not doing as much damage as you wish it could.
And she's going to break the connection and jump off the cart and rejoin up with her brother.
As the lightning comes to a sudden, you jump off and dash towards Ilric. The beast angrily snarls at you, and the one tentacle manages to strike you right on the throat, Volmar. Volmar is instantly knocked unconscious by this creature. The other tentacle blasts towards the falcon, which has been harassing him.
As the falcon dies, Ilric senses that it's no longer with him and gets a connection to the animal that killed it in a form of vengeance.
And it begins projecting again as it stands victorious over the unconscious Volmar.
Torbjorn clenches his jaw and leans forward and begins to run towards his fallen companion Volmar, and in doing so he steals his resolve.
Torbjorn quickly runs towards taking a strike from one of the tentacles on the displacer beasts, but it doesn't matter. It bounces right off his armor. He jumps onto the cart and grabs Volmar. Captain Torbjorn runs up, picks up Volmar, and begins to run out away from this displacer beast, which takes a swing at it with its tentacle. However, it just bounces off his armor as well, and he continues to run in the other direction.
And as a final thing, Torbjorn will yell, "Leave the cart! Make for the gorge, quickly!"
The beast snarls at you, Oburu, as tentacles swipe at you, both hitting true. Oburu takes his hand, places it on his own shoulder as a golden light radiates from it, and you feel the wounds caused by these beasts begin to close themselves. Oburu, after healing himself, quickly runs towards the gorge. The beast takes a swipe at it with one of its tentacles, but he misses entirely. All of you hear more rumbling from up above and look to see that the snow is gaining momentum, beginning to pick up mud and rocks as well. Volmar remains unconscious on the shoulder of Torbjorn.
Well, this isn't looking fun. Ilric will proceed to run towards Dayo Gorge, shoots off another one of his invisible force missiles towards the displacer beast that has killed one of their horses.
Ilric quickly turns around as he is running in that direction and launches another blast towards the beast, hitting it this time and watching as the beast begins to converge on itself and revealing its true position.
Alara is just going to, as she passes by, as she follows her brother down towards Dayo Gorge, she's going to reach out a hand and clench it into a fist again and attempt a chilling touch.
Alara makes the motion again, and this time the skeletal hand places itself directly on the throat. You watch as a frost moves across the beast, as there's a sound, although it can't make the full roar. The horse around it panics.
Alara will rejoin her brother up front.
You watch as the second displacer beast, perfectly satisfied not to bother with Torbjorn anymore, runs over to the remaining horse and begins mauling at it and rips it apart with its tentacles, much like the first one.
Torbjorn will continue moving as quickly as he can towards Dayo Gorge to escape from the avalanche.
Torbjorn continues his mad sprint away from the avalanche site. Quickly, a tentacle launches itself towards Alara. The beast takes a couple swipes at Alara with its tentacles as they both strike her. She is unable to defend herself, and even as Oburu looks behind and attempts to shield her, he is unable to keep her safe as she falls to the ground unconscious from all this damage. At this time, the displacer beast manages to focus itself, and you watch as it suddenly teleports about a foot to its left.
I will take care of your sister. Move!
Picking up Alara, he quickly runs out of the remainder of the pass. At this point, the snow and the rubble begin to pour over the sides of the mountain and just into the center of the pass, crushing the cart. The displacer beast turns around in sudden horror, seeing its fate as it is crushed by rocks and snow.
Ilric, seeing that he's one of the last people still there, will disengage and turn tail.
Torbjorn, still holding Volmar, holds the way for the pass as he watches Oburu carrying Alara run out and Ilric run out quickly behind him. Torbjorn, being the very last one, also runs out of the pass, just as it finishes filling up with snow and debris from the landslide. The other displacer beast is also crushed in a final whimper against the wall beneath the snow. You each make your way outside of the pass and run about 40 yards away as the snow spills out from the pass. Looking back behind you, the snow and rubble pile up on itself, making a 50-foot wall on this pass. Looking down, you see your companions who are in dire straits.
Ilric will immediately try and stabilize Alara.
Ilric, you are unable to really keep her stabilized. You do not know enough about medicine.
This is no place to die. Up and at 'em.
Focusing in and praying, Oburu puts his hands on top of both Alara and Volmar. The golden light from before shines on top of them as their wounds close before all your eyes, and at the same time both of their eyes sort of flutter open.
Oburu. Where's the cart?
You left the wagon behind. Those beasts mauled the horses, and you two were both in critical condition.
Alara?
Alara turns her head towards the two of you, and immediately her eyes land on Oburu as they come into focus, and she just goes, "Thank you, friend."
I guess I should inform you all that I am lacking on magical resources now. Only that which my god has bestowed upon me is what I can use.
Well then, we should probably find some place to rest.
You take a moment and each stand up and take in your surroundings. You are just beyond a great valley with mountains at every edge. Steep rock walls keep this valley together, which is just painted red with these Dayo flowers, which can be found everywhere. Taking a deep breath, you look at the meager path and you start down the road to whomever you can find.
Just before we start to walk off, Torbjorn will walk up to the two silver bows. I don't know how you do things in the silver bows, but whenever I give the command to break away, when you attack that beast, it almost cost you your lives. He was perfectly happy just eating the horse.
Alara looks a little embarrassed. She simply goes, "Understood."
Your captain asked me to protect you, but I cannot protect you from yourselves. And then Torbjorn will turn and walk forward towards the valley. Hello, I'm Jamie Jones, and I play Torbjorn Idrison, Dwarf Fighter, in The Assassin in Dayo Gorge. Thank you for listening to the Iron Archives. In this game, the Dungeon Master was DJ Kessinger. The Assistant Dungeon Masters were Noah Madsen and Van Sprague. The players were Jamie Jones, Roman Martell, Samuel Rafi, Ryan Sprague, and Kayla Techmeyer. Sound editing was done by Rose Abernathy. If you like this program, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It's your generous contributions that allow us to continue making this show. Patrons receive exclusive content from the world of Mindria, such as art and lore. Thank you for your support.